The market smelled of smoke, sweat, and fear. The cages were stacked one over another, each filled with thin bodies, trembling hands and wide glowing eyes. Traders shouted prices. The crowd roared with laughter, and the sound of coins echoed louder than the cries of those locked inside. Tonight was special. The auction block would show a rare collection. Not cattle, not animals. These were living beings, alien girls captured from broken villages, sold by weight, sold by the kilo, as if they were nothing more than meat. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms and a cruel grin, slapped the bars of a cage. His voice was sharp. "Look here, buyers. Soft flesh, thin bones, perfect for stew or labor. Who will start the bidding? 10 credits for a kilo." The crowd laughed. Some shouted numbers, some pointed fingers, some tossed coins just to hear the clink. Each girl inside shrank back against the bars. Their hope had long died. Their eyes were dull. Except for one. She was smaller than the rest. Her skin pale, her hair tangled. She looked so weak that even the auctioneer sneered. "This one is hardly worth cooking," he said, dragging her forward by the arm. "She weighs less than a bag of grain. Who wants her? 5 credits per kilo, no more. She is almost nothing." The crowd erupted in cruel laughter. Some joked about throwing her to animals. Others said she was too thin, even for dogs. The girl trembled. Her stomach was empty, her lips dry. She wanted to speak, to beg. But no words came out. She only hugged herself, wishing she could vanish. That was when silence fell. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, boots heavy against the dirt. A tall man, not alien but human, his face partly hidden. Under the hood of a travel cloak, the auctioneer blinked in surprise. The crowd whispered, "A human? Here? What does he want in this place?" Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, rare and feared. They did not mix with markets like this. They did not lower themselves to stand among butchers and traders. Yet here he was, calm, steady, his eyes fixed only on the small girl on the auction block. The auctioneer grinned wide. "Ah, an honored human guest. Do you wish to join the bidding? Or perhaps you only came to watch the fun?" The man did not answer. He walked closer, every step making the crowd pull back a little. His silence carried more weight than any shout. When he finally stopped, he looked at the girl, not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with something else, something unreadable. The girl felt his gaze and shivered. Was this man different? Or was he simply deciding how best to use her? She pressed her forehead to the cold bars of the cage, whispering inside her heart, "Please, not him too." The auctioneer laughed nervously. "Well then, human, shall we start? 5 credits per kilo for this useless thing, a waste. But perhaps you enjoy strange tastes, eh?" The man's hand moved to his belt pouch. He pulled out a strip of metal tokens, heavy credits that gleamed under the torchlight. He placed them on the table without a word. The crowd gasped. The noise of the market broke into chaos. "He's buying her," someone shouted. "Why waste money on skin and bones?" Another jeered. "Maybe humans eat raw meat." The auctioneer's eyes widened at the weight of the credits. He had never expected this thin girl to fetch such a price. Quickly, he pushed her forward, unlocking the cage with a clang. "She is yours, mighty human. Take her. She is nothing but a burden to me, but your money is good. Very good." The girl stumbled as the door opened. Her legs barely carried her. She fell to her, knees on the dirt. The man reached down, not roughly but firmly. His hand caught her arm and pulled her up. She flinched, expecting pain, expecting chains, expecting the first strike of a cruel master. But none came. Instead, he pulled his cloak around her thin shoulders, covering her from the eyes of the crowd. A whisper escaped his lips, so quiet only she heard it. "You're coming home with me." The girl's heart pounded. She did not understand. She could not believe. Why would anyone, especially a human, say such words in a place like this? Behind them, the crowd booed, mocked, cursed. Waste of money. Humans are mad. That one won't survive the night. But the man ignored them. He walked forward, carrying her weight as if it were nothing, step after step through the noise of the market. The torches behind them burned, the laughter faded, but in her ears, the only sound left was his whisper. "You're coming home with me." For the first time since she had been captured, a spark of something strange lit inside her chest. Not hope, not yet, but something close to it. And the auction block, once her prison, disappeared behind her. The marketplace noise still echoed in her ears as the human led her away. The girl stumbled, her thin legs weak, her body shook with fear. Every step she took, she thought this was her last. Behind them, the traders laughed and shouted, their voices carried through the smoky night. "Hey, human, don't cry when your meat dies in 2 days. Boil her slowly, she's too skinny for fire." What a fool, paying good money for bones. But the man did not turn back. He walked forward with steady steps, his grip firm but not cruel. His cloak wrapped around her small frame, shielding her from eyes that still burned with greed. The girl dared to lift her eyes to him, just for a moment. His face was hard, lined from years of travel, his eyes deep, carrying shadows of things she could not understand. He was silent, but silence can be louder than words. Her heart raced. Every breath hurt. What does he want from me? She thought, why buy me? Why cover me with his cloak? Why not chain me like the others? When they reached the edge of the market, the human stopped. He turned to face the auctioneer's assistant, a short alien with 3 eyes who carried records of every sale. "Her papers," the man said in a calm voice. His words were short, low, but they struck like thunder. The assistant blinked nervously. Papers? "Oh, of course, human. Here. She is yours now. You may do with her as you wish." He quickly handed over a tablet, stamped with the auction seal. The man did not even look at it. He slipped the tablet into his pouch and turned away. The girl's heart sank. Papers, ownership. The words cut deep. She was not a person to him. Not truly. She was a purchase, property, bought like grain. She felt tears sting her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She had cried enough. They walked through the narrow streets, until the torches of the market faded behind them. Darkness stretched ahead, lit only by the twin moons of this world. The girl's bare feet scraped against the dirt. The cloak dragged at her heels. She wanted to ask where he was taking her, but her throat was dry. Words would not come. At last, the silence broke. "You can walk freely," the man said without looking at her. His voice was not warm, but it was not cruel either. "I will not chain you." The words froze her in place. She stared at him wide-eyed. Her lips trembled. No chains?" she whispered in disbelief. He glanced at her, only for a moment. "Do you want chains?" She shook, her head quickly, her hair tangled around her face. "No, please, no." "Then walk," he said simply, and continued forward. Her mind spun. This was not how it was supposed to be. Slaves were chained, beaten, treated as less than animals. She had seen it, lived it. She had expected the same fate. But this man was different. Why? The road stretched long and her body gave way. Her knees buckled. She fell hard onto the dirt. He stopped at once, turning back. Her breath came in sharp gasps. She clutched her chest. I can't," she whispered. Her strength had left her long ago. The human crouched. His eyes studied her for a moment. Then, without a word, he lifted her into his arms. She gasped, shocked, her body tensed, waiting for pain, but there was none. His grip was strong, steady. He carried her as though her weight meant nothing. She buried her face in his cloak, confused, frightened. Her thoughts screamed, "Why is he doing this? Why carry me? Why cover me? Why pay for me?" Minutes passed in silence. Only the sound of his boots on the dirt road filled the night, until finally she spoke in a trembling whisper. "Why? Me?" He did not answer at once. His jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the horizon. After a long pause, he said, "Because no one else would." The girl's heart skipped. She lifted her head, searching his face. His eyes looked far away, filled with shadows of memories she could not see. She wanted to ask more, but his silence returned heavy and unshakable. At last, they reached the edge of the town. Beyond it lay forests dark and deep. The air was cooler here, cleaner than the foul smoke of the market. He stopped for a moment, adjusting her weight in his arms. "You'll eat," he said quietly. "You'll rest?" Her eyes widened. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Eat? Rest?" she whispered. The words were alien to her, more strange than any cruelty she had known. He gave a short nod, as if it was nothing special. "Yes." Tears filled her eyes, but she hid them quickly against his cloak. She did not want him to see. She did not want to hope, not yet. Hope was dangerous. Hope was painful. But in her heart, a small crack opened in the wall of fear. Just a crack, just enough for light to touch the darkness. Behind them, the market still howled with greed and laughter. But ahead, in the arms of the human, a different path began. The girl did not know where it would lead. She only knew one thing. He had said, "No chains, no cages." And for the first time, those words sounded like freedom. The night grew colder as the human carried the girl along the dirt path. The forest ahead was silent except for the rustle of leaves and the distant cry of night creatures. His steps were heavy but steady, and she lay in his arms, too weak to resist. She wanted to speak, to ask him why he saved her, but her lips would not move. Fear still held her voice prisoner. For so long she had learned that words brought punishment. Every question was answered with pain, and so she stayed silent, breathing shallow against his cloak. The man did not look at her. His eyes stayed on the dark path ahead, but his arms did not loosen, not even once. His grip was firm, protective, as though he carried something fragile, something worth guarding. At last, he reached a crossroads where an old transport vehicle waited. Its surface was rusted, its engine weak, but it still worked. He set her down gently on the back seat. She winced, expecting roughness, but none came. "Sit," he said simply. His voice was low, controlled. He moved to the front and started. The engine. The machine rumbled, shaking the ground as it rolled forward into the night. The girl curled into the corner of the seat, pulling his cloak tighter around her thin frame. Her stomach twisted with hunger. Her throat burned for water she dared not ask. But then she heard the sound of something shifting. The man reached into his bag and placed a small container beside her. Clear liquid glimmered inside. Water. She blinked, staring at it, afraid to touch. "Drink," he said. Without looking at her, her hands trembled as she lifted it. The cool water touched her lips and tears filled her eyes as she swallowed. For days she had begged for a drop in the cages, and none had given her. But now, here it was. Freely offered, she drank slowly, fearing it might vanish if she moved too fast. When she finished, she whispered, "Thank you." Her voice cracked from disuse. The man glanced at her briefly, then looked back to the road. He gave no answer, but something in his eyes shifted, just for a second. The vehicle rolled through the forest roads. The air smelled of pine and earth, a sharp contrast to the foul smoke of the market. She pressed her face to the window, watching shadows race past. But the questions inside her heart grew louder with every mile. Why me? Why save me? Why buy me? Her fear twisted those questions into darker shapes. Perhaps he only wanted to keep her alive until he could sell her again. Perhaps he wanted to fatten her before slaughter. Her body shook. The taste of water in her mouth turned bitter with doubt. Sensing her trembling, the man spoke at last. "You don't need to fear me." She froze. Her eyes widened. How did he know? He kept his gaze on the road. "I did not buy you for harm," he continued. "You will not be cut, cooked, or sold. You will not return to that place." His words were steady, but her heart refused to believe. She hugged herself tighter, whispering, "Everyone says that. Then they change." The man's jaw tightened. "I will not change," he said firmly. His hands gripped the steering controls. and for the first time, his voice carried a sharp edge, not against her, but against something unseen, something from his past. The vehicle slowed as they climbed a hill. At the top, the trees parted, revealing the distant lights of a small village below. The roofs glimmered under the moons, smoke rising from chimneys. The girl's eyes widened. Fear surged again. "Are you taking me there?" she whispered. "No," he said flatly. "We passed through, that is all." Relief and confusion mixed inside her. Why avoid the village? Wouldn't it be easier to hide her there? But she dared not ask more. When they finally entered the village road, whispers rose. Faces turned, eyes followed them. A human was rare enough, but a human carrying an alien girl wrapped in his cloak was stranger still, the villagers muttered. He bought one from the block. Look at her, worthless thing. Humans are strange, they keep pets. The girl shrank into the cloak, her heart pounding. The cruel words stabbed her. She waited for the man to hand her over, to sell her again in this place, but instead he kept walking, ignoring every whisper. His face was stone, unshaken by their mocking eyes. He reached the far end of the village, where the forest road opened again, and only then did she breathe. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Why not leave me there?" He looked down at her. His eyes were sharp but calm. "Because they are no better than the market, and you are not theirs to touch." Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to speak, but the words would not come. The vehicle carried them farther, leaving the lights behind. The night grew darker, the forest deeper, until finally he stopped before a lonely trail that led into the hills. He turned off the engine. The silence of the woods wrapped around them. "This is the road," he said quietly, lifting her again into his arms. She did not resist this time. Her head rested against his chest. Her fear still lived inside her, but something else had begun to stir. Something she had not felt in years. Safety. The road away from the market stretched behind them. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this road would not end in chains. The forest grew thicker as the road narrowed. The old vehicle rattled to a stop. Beyond the trees, a faint light glowed, not from a town, not from a market, but from a small cabin hidden deep in the hills. The man stepped out first, his boots pressed against the wet soil. Then he lifted the girl gently, cradling her as if she weighed nothing. She wanted to resist, to walk on her own, but her body was still too weak. Her eyes, however, stayed sharp, watching every detail. The cabin was made of rough wood. Its walls, patched with metal sheets, smoke curled from a crooked chimney. A small lantern hung by the door, flickering in the cold wind. It was quiet. Too quiet. No neighbors, no guards, no cages stacked outside. The human pushed the door open. It creaked. Loudly, the inside smelled of wood fire and old books. The cabin was simple: one table, two chairs, shelves lined with dusty tools, and a small bed in the corner. No chains, no locks, no whips. The girl stiffened in his arms. Her mind screamed, "It's a trick. He will lock me when I am inside. He will show his real face," but instead, he set her down carefully on the bed, his cloak still wrapped around her. He lit another lantern, filling the room with warm golden light. "You will rest here," he said calmly. His voice carried no command, only plain truth. She clutched the cloak tighter. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for hidden chains, for collars, for anything that proved her fear. But there was nothing, only wood and silence. The man turned away, busying himself near the small stove. He placed a pot over the fire, pouring water in something that smelled faintly like soup. The crackle of flames filled the cabin. The girl's stomach tightened. Painfully, she wanted to look away, but her body betrayed her with a low growl. He glanced back at her. "You are hungry," he said. It was not a question. She lowered her head, ashamed. Her thin fingers clutched the cloak. She hated that her body revealed her need. Hunger was weakness. Weakness brought punishment. She expected him to laugh or to scold her. Instead, he ladled. soup into a small bowl and placed it in her hands. The warmth stung her palms. She stared at the liquid, steam rising. The smell made her dizzy. "Eat," he said simply. Her throat tightened. Suspicion burned in her chest. What if it's poisoned? What if he only wants to test me? She looked up at him, searching his face, but his expression did not change. He had already turned away, sitting at the table with his own bowl. Her lips trembled. Slowly, carefully, she took a sip. The taste was salty, soft, warm. It filled her mouth, slid down her throat. And for the first time in weeks, she felt alive. A sob escaped her before she could stop it. The man did not look at her. He let her cry silently into the bowl. He only ate in silence, as if this was the most ordinary thing in the world. When she finished, she placed the empty bowl on her lap. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Why? Why give me this?" He did not answer at once. He stared at the fire, his eyes distant. "Because you needed it." Her heart raced. She shook her head. "No one gives without taking. No one saves without wanting something. Tell me, what do you want from me?" His jaw tightened. He turned his gaze toward her. His eyes met hers. Steady, unflinching. "I want nothing. Not food. Not work. Not your fear, nothing." His voice was heavy, like stone. "I only want you to live." The words struck her harder than any blow. She could not believe them. Her world had never given kindness, never without price. She pressed her face into the cloak, whispering to herself, "He lies, he must lie," but her tears wet the fabric, and still no chains came. The night deepened. The man cleared the bowls and set them aside. He placed another log on the fire. The crackling filled the silence. Then he picked up a small blanket and draped it over her shoulders. "You will sleep," he said softly. "No one will hurt you here." She looked at him, eyes wide, lips parting. But no words came. She was too tired, too broken. The warmth of the fire, the weight of the blanket, and the taste of food pulled her into sleep before she could resist. As her breathing steadied, the man sat back in his chair, staring at the flames, his hand clenched tightly around a small, worn locket he carried in his pocket. Inside it was a picture, faded with time, of faces long gone. He whispered to the eye, "Fire," words too low for her to hear. "I couldn't save them, but maybe I can save one." The cabin was silent except for the crackling wood. Outside, the forest whispered in the wind. Inside, the girl slept for the first time without chains, and the man sat alone, haunted by his past, guarding the fragile life he had chosen to protect. The first rays of morning slipped through the cracks of the wooden cabin. The girl stirred on the bed, wrapped in the cloak and blanket. For a moment she thought it was a dream. Warmth, food, silence. No shouting guards, no cage bars. Then her eyes opened, and she saw the man sitting at the table, sharpening a small blade. Her breath caught. Fear rushed back. She pushed herself up quickly, clutching the blanket around her. Was this the moment he would reveal his real purpose? Was the blade for her? The man glanced at her, his face calm. "It is for wood," he said, as though he had read her thoughts. He turned the blade to show its dull edge, then returned to his work. Her body relaxed only slightly. Suspicion still gnawed at her heart. She whispered, "Why keep me here? Why not sell me again? Or use me?" He set the blade down and leaned back in the chair. His eyes were tired, his voice low. "Because I have seen enough chains, enough cages, I will not add another." She shook her head. "No one is kind for nothing, not in this galaxy." Her voice cracked. "So what do you want from me?" For a long time, he did not answer. The fire popped in the stove, filling the silence. At last he spoke. "I had a family once." Her eyes lifted, surprised. The word family was foreign to her, strange and heavy. He looked down at his hands. His voice was steady, but behind it lived pain. A wife, a child, a small home, Not so different from this one. We lived quietly until war came. Soldiers burned everything. They said humans must choose sides. I chose my family. I tried to protect them. But his jaw clenched. His words caught. I failed. The girl's throat tightened. She saw the shadow in his eyes, a grief too deep to be healed. I could not save them, he whispered. And every day since, I have carried that weight. Every face I see in cages, every voice begging for water, it reminds me of what I lost, of how powerless I was. He raised his eyes to her, sharp and heavy. I saw you on that block, thin, broken, treated like nothing, and I thought, maybe just once I could save one. The girl's chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. Her hands clutched the blanket tighter. She wanted to speak, but words tangled in her throat. He stood and walked to the window, staring at the forest outside. You don't owe me anything. Not food, not service, not yourself I will not take from you. I only want to give what I could not give to them. Safety. His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. She did not know whether to believe him. No one had ever spoken to her this way. No one had ever seen her as more than weight, more than meat. Her eyes stung. Why? Me? She asked softly. Her voice shook. There were others on the block, stronger, younger. Why choose me? He turned, his gaze locked on hers, because everyone else looked away. His voice was steady. And I will not. Silence wrapped the cabin. The girl trembled, not from fear this time, but from something new, something strange. It felt like warmth spreading through her chest, but it scared her even more than hunger or pain. She looked down quickly, whispering, I don't know how to be free. He walked closer, kneeling beside the bed. His voice softened. Then you will learn. Slowly, at your pace. No chains, no cages. You are not meat. You are not weight. You are alive. Her lips trembled. Tears spilled from her eyes. She covered her face, ashamed to show weakness. But the man did not move. He only waited, silent, patient, letting her cry until her breathing calmed. When she lowered her hands, he placed something small on the bed beside her, a locket worn and scratched. Inside was a faded picture of a woman and a child smiling. This was my family, he said quietly. They are gone, but I carry them always. You do not replace them, but you remind me why life must be protected. Her fingers brushed the locket. Her chest ached. She had never been shown such a thing, never been trusted with a memory so precious. The man stood again, giving her space. Rest more if you need. The cabin is safe outside. The forest keeps secrets. No one will find you here. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. And if I leave? His answer came without hesitation. Then you leave. I will not stop you. Her heart raced. Her mind screamed that this was another trick, but her instincts whispered something else. Truth. She lowered her eyes to the locket again, her hands trembling. For the first time, she wondered if her life could be more than chains, more than hunger, more than weight sold by the kilo. The fire warmed the cabin, and in its glow, a fragile bond began to form. Not of ownership, not of chains, but of something far more dangerous, far more rare. Trust. Days passed slowly in the lonely cabin. Each morning, the man lit the fire, cooked simple meals, and worked with his tools. The girl stayed quiet, watching from the bed at first, afraid to move, afraid to break some hidden rule. But no punishment came, no harsh orders, no chains. He gave her food when she was hungry, water when she was thirsty, and silence when she needed space. At first, she did not trust it. Every bite of bread felt like a trap. Every sip of water felt like a test. But when nothing happened, no strike, no whip, she began to move carefully. She stood, walked slowly, touched the shelves, and looked out the window. The forest outside was wide and alive. Birds sang, leaves rustled, sunlight filtered through tall trees. She had not seen beauty in so long that it hurt her eyes. One afternoon, while the man chopped wood outside, she gathered courage and stepped to the stove. She clumsily tried to boil water. Her hands shook. She spilled some, but she kept going. When he came in, he froze at the sight. She expected anger. Instead, he said only, "Be careful. The pot is heavy." His voice was calm, nothing more. Her lips parted, confused. She had done something wrong, and yet, he had not shouted. Later, she placed a bowl of poorly cooked stew before him. The vegetables were half raw, the broth too thin. She waited for him to laugh, to throw it away, but he lifted the spoon, tasted it, and nodded. "Not bad." Her heart jolted. "Not bad?" she whispered. "Better than nothing," he said, eating another spoonful. His face gave nothing away, but she saw the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth. Something strange stirred inside her chest, a warmth she could not name. That night, she dreamed not of cages, but of a small table with 2 bowls, steam rising. As the days grew into weeks, she learned pieces of his language, simple words. She pointed at bread and whispered, "Bread." He nodded, correcting gently. His patience was endless. He did not mock her mistakes. He repeated words slowly until she could say them. One morning, while gathering kindling near the door, she tripped and fell. The sound startled her. She braced herself for a blow, but instead she heard him sigh and offer his hand. "Careful," he said again. His eyes met hers, steady, calm. Her throat tightened, and before she could stop it, a sound slipped from her lips. Soft, light, fragile. It was not a sob, not a cry, but a laugh. She froze in shock. Her own voice sounded foreign. Her hand covered her mouth quickly, her eyes wide, as though she had broken some rule. The man studied her, his brow raised. "What is it?" She lowered her hand slowly, her face hot. I laughed," she whispered, disbelieving. He tilted his head slightly. "Good," he said simply, and returned to stacking wood. Her heart raced, her lips trembled, and then, without thinking, she smiled. It was small, unsure, but real. The smile startled her more than the laugh. It felt wrong, yet right, painful, yet freeing. She turned away quickly, hiding it behind her hair, but he had seen it, and for a moment his own expression softened. The weight in his eyes lifted just a little. That night, as she lay by the fire, wrapped in the blanket, she thought about the smile. When was the last time I had done that? When was the last time I had laughed? The memory would not come, only darkness. But now in this lonely cabin, a crack of light had entered that darkness, yet the world outside had not forgotten. Rumors spread in the nearby village. The whispers grew louder. The human hides one of the meat slaves. He bought her, but not for cooking. He keeps her in his cabin. Hunters began to listen, men who thrived on profit and cruelty. Their greedy eyes turned toward the forest. The girl sensed it before she knew it. When she went outside one evening, she saw footprints near the trees that were not his. Her stomach knotted. Fear returned like a storm. She rushed inside, her voice shaking. Someone was here. The man's face darkened. His hand went to the blade on the table. His eyes narrowed. "They know," he said quietly. Her chest tightened. "They'll come," she whispered, trembling. "They'll take me back. You'll lose everything." He looked at her firmly, his voice sharp and final. "No, they will not." She stared at him, heart pounding. Why? Why risk yourself? I am not worth..." He cut her words short. "You are alive. That is enough." Her throat closed, her eyes filled with tears, and for the second time in her life, she smiled. Small, trembling, but brighter than the first. The man saw it, and though his face stayed hard, something in his eyes flickered like firelight. The first smile had broken the chains she thought were unbreakable. But outside, danger was already moving closer. The forest was quiet that night, too quiet. The girl sat by the fire, clutching the blanket. Her eyes darted to the door again and again. Every crackle of wood made her flinch. Every whisper of wind made her heart pound. The man sharpened his blade at the table, his face calm but his jaw tight. He could feel it too, the air thick with warning. The hunters were coming. It began with a knock, heavy and rough. The sound echoed through the small cabin. The girl froze, her breath caught in her throat. Her hands clutched the blanket tighter. She whispered, "They found us." The man rose slowly, his boots thudding against the wooden floor. He opened the door, and there they stood, 3 hunters, broad and armed, their eyes gleaming with greed. The leader stepped forward, sneering, "Human, you have something that doesn't belong to you, a piece of meat from the block. We'll take her now. You can step aside and live, or stand in the way and die." The girl's heart shattered. She rose to her feet, trembling. "Please," she whispered, "let me go. If I leave, they won't hurt you. You've done enough." Tears rolled down her face. "I can't let you die because of me." But the man's voice was iron. "No." He stepped out of the cabin, blade in hand. "She is not meat. She is not yours. She is free, and she stays with me." The hunters laughed. The leader spat on the ground. "Foolish words. She was sold by weight, stamped by the market. She's nothing but property, and you dare claim otherwise?" The man's eyes burned. His voice cut like thunder. "She is not property, she is family." The words shook the girl to her core. Her knees weakened. She covered her mouth, unable to breathe. "Family?" He called me. "Family?" The hunters charged. The clash was brutal. Blades flashed, fists struck. The man moved like stone in storm, each strike precise, each step firm. The girl watched in terror, her heart screaming, "He's fighting for me. He's bleeding for me." The leader swung hard. His blade scraped the man's arm. Blood spilled, but the human did not falter. He struck back with all his strength, knocking the hunter to the ground. The others stumbled, fear breaking their greed. "You'll regret this, human," one shouted as they dragged their injured leader away into the night. "The market will hear of this. They'll send more. They'll send worse." The man stood in the doorway, blood on his arm, chest heaving, his eyes still sharp. He did not chase. He only watched until the forest swallowed their shadows. Then he turned back inside. His steps heavy, his blade slipping from his hand onto the table. He leaned against the wall, pain in his eyes but no regret. The girl rushed to him, tears streaming. "Why? Why would you do this? You could have lived without me. You could have let them take me." Her voice broke. "Why risk everything?" He looked at her, his face hard but his words soft. "Because I made my choice. I lost my family once. I will not lose again. Not while I can fight." Her body shook. Her tears fell freely. She pressed her forehead against his chest, whispering, "Then let me stay. Let me be your family." For a moment, silence filled the cabin, only the crackle of fire and her soft sobs. Then slowly, carefully, his hand rested on her shoulder, steady and warm. "You already are," he said. The girl lifted her face, her lips trembling, and for the first time her smile was not small, not hidden. It was wide, real, shining through her tears. The lonely cabin, once filled only with silence and ghosts, now carried something new: laughter, warmth, life. Outside, the galaxy was still cruel. The market still sold lives by the kilo. The hunters still hunted. But in this small corner of the forest, one human had drawn a line and made a choice. And because of that choice, one girl who had been treated as nothing found a name stronger than survival: family.